Go. Hello, everyone. And we're going to get started here with Satsang. Any moments? Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. A little bit, as you can tell from the setting, I am not in New York. I'm actually in Seattle. I gotta mute the sound on the screen here to make sure that I can hear. Chrissy is here and Puppy has showed up. Hi, good to see you guys. Excellent to see you. Push this over to the side. So again, I apologize for my tardiness and the like. I don't have quite as good an internet connection here as well. So the picture may end up being a little bit kind of breaking up a little bit and staccato, you might say. So hi, Joanna, nice to see you. Judy's here. I trust you can all hear me. Sarah's here from France. Wonderful. Judy is in Florida. Chrissy in New Zealand. Puppy, I think you're in Arizona, if I remember correctly. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. If my lips are moving and you're not hearing anything, but you can read lips, please let me know. But I think the sound is all okay and loud enough that you can hear me and understand. So welcome everyone to Satsang today. And please type in the chat just to say hi and tell me where you are, just so I love to see all of that. And there's always a lot more people watching than actually type into the chat. We're here for to just explore together. That's what Satsang is all about. It's about self-exploration. It's not about a teacher dispensing information. It is about looking together into the deepest questions of life. Oh, Puppy's in Greece. Somebody else is in Puppy New. There's a Puppy New. That's the one in Arizona. Jill is here from Massachusetts. Johanna's in Mexico. Daniela is Slovakia. Barbara from Sweden. Heron in Holland. Maljuga from Slovenia. I got Ali from Fort Worth, Texas. Got some Texans online here. Wonderful. So remember, the satsang is it's an opportunity for you to be with yourself. It's like taking out a space, a chunk of time to take care of yourself. And it's funny how maligned taking care of yourself, putting yourself first for a moment, is in our culture, in the Western culture, really. We think of it as being some kind of a selfish act, when in fact it's exactly the opposite. The act of self-inquiry is an extremely noble and courageous one, and it's one that really opens the door for everybody else to do it as well. Because the beautiful thing about genuine self-inquiry and spiritual development is that raising yourself and raising the planet are one and the same. You can't do one without the other. If you really haven't done your own inner work, it doesn't matter how much work you do in the world, how much money you donate, how many causes you support, how many, politicians you have to try to get thrown out. It won't have the same kind of impact as even less being done by somebody who has become increasingly self-aware. When we discover how the egoic mind works in us, we realize how it works in everybody else, because it's all the same in every single one of us. And we also realize how it manifests itself in the collective consciousness, which we see reflected as culture, society, politics, economics, education, medicine, science. They all reflect just on a bigger screen the exact same egoic properties as in any individual. Anytime anything organizes to a certain level, especially, starting at the individual human being, which is consciousness that is self-aware, it's aware of being conscious. Everything that arises from that, every kind of combination, there's a certain kind of egoic identity that happens in every relationship you have. The entity takes on kind of a third quality. And if it's not understood, and you're not doing your own inner work, it's going to end up creating conflict. And that's what happens in the world. The egoic mind, this is really important, right? The whole purpose of the egoic mind is to create blocks, to create obstacles, to create boundaries. The sense of disconnect with the world is the egoic mind creating a sense of separation, creating a sense of me and you, and then making up stories, all sorts of stories about what that is, that relationship. It's why love has been so marginalized, it's been sentimentalized, because love is exactly the opposite. Why does love feel so good? Because it is a demolition of boundaries. The boundaries disappear. And what do we feel? Unity, oneness, joy, bliss. And so the egoic mind and the culture that it has created to reflect itself puts love, even the deepest, sweetest romantic love, into this category of, separate, it has nothing to do with business. Love and business, you're kidding. How about politics? Love? Nah, nothing. Science, all of it. None of it regards love as being significant at all. And yet it is the absence of that that has created every problem the planet is experiencing. We are dying for connection. But the whole nature of the egoic self is to create and maintain the wall. And somehow that wall has to come down. So if we realize that, we understand the whole strategy. Every time the egoic mind says, well, they shouldn't have been like that, any kind of judgment, notice that all it's doing is creating a separation, and then it makes up a story about it, how you're superior to them. Or maybe it's you judge yourself. Oh, I could have done better. Why can't I be more like them? Boom, separation, story. But now this time you're judging you. You're the one putting yourself down. So when I am suggesting the kind of inner work and exploration into yourself, it is not unselfish, exactly the opposite. It is ego threatening, which is why the world resists. It's why the world puts it off, why it calls it, well, that's selfish. You should be more engaged in this world here, trying to do your best to overcome the separation, which of course the foundation of it is separation. It does nothing but perpetuate it itself. So the kind of really deep and meaningful introspection I'm proposing is in in the introspection of who you actually are. The ego is an artificial version of you created by the nervous system as simply it arises spontaneously. It just seems to be natural in human consciousness to suffer from this delusion of that, there's me here and a separate world out there that does not see the connection between the two. It happens very, very early in life. It gets until it is properly shown to be nothing but a perception and not the reality. It exists and perpetuates itself throughout a life, and then replicates itself in relationships and in groups and in countries and nationality. I mean, we're the most boundary obsessed cultures there are, right? I mean, we always have our own private rooms. Everything is private. Everything is closed. We we want total, boundaries, fences everywhere. Everywhere you look, everybody's got their fences up. We've got boundaries of towns. We have boundaries of states and of countries, and we're guarding our borders, and we're going to build a wall on our border. It's like, oh my God, it's insane. It is pure ego, right? And I'm not just talking about the ego of arrogance and self-aggrandizement. That's conceit. Egotism has nothing to do with that. Egotism is, even if I make myself into less than, it's egoic. It is anytime there's a boundary that creates and maintains separation with myself and anything else, that is the ego. The ego on steroids will spend $18 billion to build a useless wall. And not to mention, God knows how much, trillions on weapons and all the stuff that we do. And I mean, it's just nothing but how these bad people are doing bad things and we're the good guys. And I mean, it's insanity. I mean, it's total insanity. But when you see it in its essence, you see that all it is a reflection of and a magnification of the same sense of an egoic mind that we all deal with individually right here. And the more we deal with this here, the less there will be of it out there, because it won't have any energy to draw on. So when I invite this kind of self-exploration, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about exploring the self that is not the egoic mind, but is the true self, the heart, the reality of consciousness. So I'm going to open it up here for questions. So I just don't go on and on and on talking about things, although I could. But this is satsang, so it's for us to engage with one another and not just me. Blah, 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 blah. So let's see. Amy from Texas got her. Terry Shirley, hi from North Carolina. Hello. The little emoji waving at me. Hi from Croatia, from Maja. Hi, Maja. This is wonderful. Mira is from Russia. Sarah, say, hey, I'm here. Okay. Did I say Sarah in France? Did I say before? I think it's the same Sarah. And let's see, Anne is here from Georgia. Hi, Anne. So that was Hiron said that was a beautiful intro. Oh, thank you, Hiron. This I could go on all day. I mean, and of course in the retreat that's coming up, that's exactly what I'm going to do, is go on all day. Next weekend, actually, those of you, there's still space in the at the Krishnamurti Center for the live in-person weekend retreat coming up next weekend. It starts a week from Friday at night and goes through Sunday afternoon. But this subject of the egoic mind, I think it's gpwalsh.com/retreat if you're interested. this subject is vastly misunderstood because we think it's just kind of a personal characteristic that we have to get rid of and not be conceited or not think too much about. And that it's been a way in which we've actually been controlled because, somebody says, oh, that's just your ego. I mean, as if it's not there saying that, right? I mean, when we really learn what the nature of it is and how it operates, we cease to become fooled by it, and we become its master. We get liberated from that. So let's see, Miss B from Llandudno. I don't know where that is, Miss B. So if I even pronounced it correctly, I think I did this once before. So Ida says, hi from Norway. Thank you so much. Good. All right, say Maljuga says, how to see real I am, and I am created from ego. Okay. Excuse me, my protein smoothie. Well, the ego is patterns of thoughts and behavior. That's all it is, right? Remember, you've heard me say this before, but let it really sink in. The ego is not a thing. It's not a person. It's not a person. It's not a being, and it's not you. It is a habitual pattern of thinking and behaving. It's a particular way in which thoughts flow, and the nature of this, the structure of those thoughts, kind of the center around which it orbits, is this sense of being a separate self. And so the ego is right there to sustain the sense of a separate self and to maintain the wall between you and others. Because if I am the separate self, then they're dangerous. This is a problem. I need to get what I need from them, and I've got to negotiate this territory, and my life becomes nothing but a bunch of transactions that I'm acting out. That's just seeing that operate within your mind and in your body is to see the ego in action. But most of the time, the problem is we're so identified with those that, oh, I did it again. That was so stupid. Or thinking I am this person, I am this little body, I'm the shivering little me, and I'm in trouble, and I'm in this big world, and I got to do something to try to get or attract what I need. Normally we're so identified with that we don't question it. We don't stop for a second and say, well, wait a minute, is that what I actually am? So to find the true I am, you take a step back from all of this stuff going on, and you just very simply sit and look at it. And then notice where it is you're looking from. That what you're seeing and the one seeing it are not the same. That you are witnessing this energy, these patterns of thought and reaction going on within the nervous system. But you, as the witness of them, are not them. You are not that. You are whatever it is that is aware of that. But our habit is that even when we recognize that for a minute, to be drawn back in to the whole circumstance. Because remember, the nervous system has mapped every single event of your life in such a way that it's got a way of responding to everything. And that's why it resists change. It doesn't want you to change. It doesn't even want you to grow, because that's a new environment that it now has to learn. But of course, the environment it has created is very small and narrow, and it's based on the assumption that you are this separate person that needs to get what it needs from the outside world and is separate and afraid. I mean, the whole image of you is this is the whole package. Take a step back and just notice that there's something that is aware of all of that. Now, if you just be there without trying to define what it is, but just noticing that it is separate from what's being perceived, you will have made the first step into the exploration of the true I am, because that is the true. I mean, is that not you? Are you not the one seeing it? I mean, is there somebody else in there that is doing the seeing? Obviously not. Whatever that is you. It's a consciousness. It is aware. It's self-aware. It's aware that you are aware. It's aware of my words. It's aware of everything you're experiencing right now. That is not a separate self. That is not in all of this other stuff that's going on. That seeing is the open door to the realization of that self. And it really is that simple. Recognizing the egoic patterns and not even fighting them, just seeing them. Because if you fight them, right, you try to put them down and make them go away, you're going to lose, because defending themselves against attacks is what they were designed to do. That's what they do with the world all day long. So you doing it from the inside isn't going to make a damn bit of difference. They're perfectly defended for that. So the best place to be is in, at least in the beginning, is just in this place of open, spacious, aware allowing. It's very simple, and immediately go, well, what's that going to do? Well, what I ask people to do is try it and find out. See if it doesn't have a feeling effect, if it does not actually have a sense to it of at least a little bit of calm, a little bit of peace, a little bit of quieting, not so much being drawn in to stuff. Just see if that's what the effect that it has. I'm going to try something right now, see if I can get the okay. Hold on a second. I'm going to change cameras here if it's not too bright. Oh, that's good. Yeah. And I think this might I think this actual one might be a little bit better in terms of me not being so broken up. So scroll back here at Maljuga. Does that help? This is really, I mean, your question is really important, right? To see the real I am. You can't really see the real I am. You become aware of yourself as the I am. And the sense of I am, and the sense of just this presence, whatever it is that is experiencing everything else, just grows increasingly strong. And so there's spending time with that, and at the same time becoming wise to what the ego is and what it's doing, and its whole purpose and its function and how it works. And that between the two of those, you got the 1-2 punch that basically kind of knocks the ego out of its predominant position and establishes the true I am as the real you interacting with the world. And that's where the power comes from. Hello, Remington. My inner world has contracted and become unstable after a failed experiment. I'm not doing so hot and have lost a deep connection with my body. What do I do? Okay. Well, right now, I invite everybody to do this very simple exercise. Right now, if you just take a deep breath and then let it out slowly, and just bring your attention to the body. And as you do that, you'll notice that thoughts come up that want to resist going there, that want to move away. Say, no, can't do that. Might even say, It's you were such a failure. Don't go there. It feels terrible. You don't really have a connection with it. But all of those are thoughts. Right? Can you feel your body? Can you feel your arms? Can you hear my voice? Can you feel just a little tingle at the bottom of your foot? Just the warmth of your hands. Remember, it's all, you are intimately connected with your body. You permeate your body. You are consciousness permeating the body. So you can't ever be disconnected from it. Any more than the pianist is disconnected from the piano when he's playing it. This is kind of a piano that you're always playing. So, can you feel your body? Take another breath. Deep breath. Yeah, really take your time. That's the body. So, are you still feeling the disconnection? It's simply a matter of where your attention goes. Right? And when the mind gets into something like that, oh, it's a failure, it's beating you up. It wants to keep your attention on the failure and the story that it's telling you and what that all means and how that's going to affect your future and what a terrible thing it was and look at the effect that it had. And it wants to keep it away from the body, which is so thoroughly anchored in the here and now that it just kind of puts a lie to the story and takes you out of it. That's the last thing the ego wants. Remember, the ego's job is to maintain a separation between you and your success, you and your happiness, you and your lovers, you and your work, you and the world. Separation. So success is something out there that I have to get rather than something that's in here and innate. It's always building the wall of separation, including I'm separate, I'm disconnected from my body. Who do you think says that? Who do you think is, where do you think those words are originating? From your body? So take another deep breath. Breathe it in. Breathe it out slowly. Where's that breath taking place? Are you aware from it? Aware of it? It's that simple, my friend. Don't ever believe the mind when it starts preaching its gospel of disconnection. It's never true. Chosen One. Hello, Chosen One. So nice to have you here. Hi, GP from Montenegro, land of aggressive people. Oh, I want to publicly apologize to you all for my president. We have in many world leaders, the president of the United States being high on the list among them, just a representation of the nature of the ego. I mean, just the idea of building a wall. I mean, that says it all. That says it all. Anne went into my I am presence to see if I have any thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Once leave the body and got just an isness. Would love your feedback on this. Anne, that isness is reality. Yes. With all the thoughts, feelings, and emotions just at bay, there's just this sense of presence. Now, that sense of isness, presence, Is that separate from you? Is that something other than you? How far away from that is you? That is you. That's all there is to you. Just presence. Now, without any thoughts or feelings or emotions or any of that going on, does that isnness have any boundaries? Can you find a limit to it? Just explore that. It is a moment of grace when something like that appears, because that's it. That is the ultimate goal of all spiritual practices. Just that state of isness that is aware of everything and yet completely free of everything. I'm not even going to say a lot about it. I just want you to be with it because it's whew, thank you. Nirvana Maharaj. That's great. Hello from Kurdistan, North Iraq. Oh my God, it feels so good to have you here. Oh, I love, this is wonderful, wonderful. So thank you very much for the great knowledge. Oh, you're very, very welcome. Wow. You're very, very welcome. I'm so glad that this kind of conversation, this kind of dialogue, and this kind of exploration is actually being is being broadcast in places like Iraq, yeah, where there's a lot of turmoil going on. Love seeing it get into there. Did have somebody from Syria once too. It's just like, it does my heart so much good that this depth of genuine loving inquiry can pierce through the deepest darkness and conflict. So thank you so much. JAI Remington has JAI, just allow it is in Inner Reconciliation 1, 2, and 3. What's different? I'm still in the JA parts and already bought JAI. There isn't anything different. It just got rolled up into the bigger Inner Reconciliation, and it's a part of it now. It's like 2 sections out of 10. So I included it because it was kind of the preliminary, and so as the entire picture of Inner Reconciliation became clearer, I stopped putting out Just Allow It independently and put it into the Inner Reconciliation in its totality. So if you want to get into the Inner Reconciliation stuff, if you haven't, because I can't remember, just send me an email. We'll see if we can give you a little discount because you already had it. Edita Arellano. Hi, GP. My husband can't understand why, after studying and listening to spiritual teachers so long, I'm so far from being awakened, meaning still suffering. It's a great question, and I want to make sure that the answer I give sounds as potent as it needs to. The reason being is that the vast majority of spiritual teachers do not understand the nature of the egoic mind. Oh, there's the egoic mind. God, you got to get rid of it. And right, in these practices, and you'll overcome it and transcend it. That's the bulk of spiritual teaching, with a rare few, including my own teacher, Mooji. There's not that many. Unfortunately, I've run into the ones that do. And so I was able to grasp this, because I struggled with the same thing. Why all this is happening? My life is still, there's all this suffering going on. It's because we don't understand the nature of suffering. It's not that you haven't experienced awakening or an awakened mind or seeing things through a much clearer lens. It's just you haven't understood the nature of the egoic mind and how it operates, which means that you still identify with the sense of suffering that comes up. Because suffering is all in the egoic mind. Suffering is in the conflict that it creates, in the separation that it creates. That's where all the suffering is. And so it's all in the resistance. Even trying to overcome the ego, to transcend the ego, creates conflict. That conflict is the suffering. Without that, there's no suffering. It's there. So what? Who cares what's there if I have no reaction to it, you know? If somebody steals somebody else's car, you know, it's like, gee, that's too bad. I mean, zero effect. Boom, in one ear, out the other. Somebody steals my car. What's the difference? Well, nothing. There is no difference, right? Except I'm attached to one. I'm not attached to the other. So the reason I created the inner reconciliation and the courses, I keep bumping the microphone, is that to me, this was not understood. How to actually take the spiritual awakening and let it move into the system requires understanding the nature of the system itself, how it operates, how it reacts, where it came from. Why are these programmed responses there? Why do I see God on Sunday morning and I'm yelling at somebody in traffic an hour later, right? If we understand that, we'll have a good laugh and the suffering will begin to disappear. If we don't understand that, we will take it personally. I'm not spiritual yet. I got to work harder. I got to listen more. There kind of is my thumbnail sketch of how the whole thing works, Edita. Forgive me if I didn't say that correctly. That's it. That's how it works. And so, you know, there's some truth in what your husband's saying. So I would ask him to join you on that, this kind of an exploration, because it's deeply profound and it's what the world needs. You know, the world is being driven by these egoic desires, and you can see what's happening. The verge of self-destruction. Suffering is increasing by the day, which means that the invitation to see through it and to awaken is increasing by the day. So does that help you? Does that make it clear? Does that give you some kind of sense of direction? Please let me know, because this is extremely important and I find it happening all the time. I mean, I would have to say that the majority of my students, there's, you know, some of them here on this right now can verify that the majority of my students come to me are spiritually disillusioned. It's like, what the hell? I've done all this and I'm getting nowhere. And because this has just never been explained, that kind of emotional and preparation of character and our emotional state that allows us to actually move with flexibility and not be so judgmental or hard on ourselves. That's the environment where it begins to dissipate. So please respond to that, Edita. I'd really like to make sure that I'm answering it, because that's just too important to ignore or to overlook. G. Goedemond. Hello from Holland. Hi, G. This is GP. Love you. Love you too. Why this ugly feeling like a big fear when I wake up? Ah, yeah. Good. Not good that you have a fear when you wake up, but that you bring it up. My approach to these kinds of things is that if I like explain something to you, you're going to try to apply it to that fear when it wakes up to try to make it go away. Here is what I'm going to recommend instead. Wake up, the next time that's there, you completely surrender to it and just let it be there. If you feel like, you can say, Would you like to tell me what it is you're trying to protect me from? Because you noticed in the question, like there's this underlying sense that you want to get rid of. And of course we do. We all want to move away from the uncomfortable. The problem is we're doing it in the wrong way. What I find is that if you turn towards these things and surrender to them and say, okay, you're here. I totally accept you. Show me what it is you want to show me. That it will answer for you that question as to why it's there. It will be a direct understanding, an intuitive knowing that comes up. Because anything I tell you would be an explanation. It goes into your mind. Your mind would then take that, try to interpret what happens to you when it happens in the attempt to make it stop happening, which means you've got the conflict going on. And that conflict always increases fear rather than mitigate it. So what's the first thing to do? You get rid of the conflict. How do you do that? You go, welcome, right? Suddenly now, there's space. And it will eventually, maybe right away, but maybe eventually reveal why it's there, or it may just disappear. And it was the only thing that sustained it was your resistance to it, was your fear of the fear, you might say. Does that help you there, G? It's the simplest answer, but I think it's the most direct because it's a practical one. This is what you do rather than, talking about what it might be. Okay, Sarah says, I am Franco-American and would like to join G in apologizing for the US president. Sorry. There's millions of us actually that are kind of going, ooh, the whole face. Oh my God, not again. Oh God, not again. Yeah. Puppy says we are one and are, yes, we are. Puppy New says, is suffering and chronic pain the same? No, but they are related. There's pain in the body. I draw a distinction, as do all real spiritual teachers, between suffering and pain. Pain is a natural occurrence. We need it. I stick my hand in fire, it hurts, I pull it out. It's how we assess things in the environment. Pain in and of itself has no inherent meaning other than it hurts, move away. Feels good, move towards. It's a basic survival mechanism that's worked, clearly. Okay? Now, both of those, the moving away from pain and the moving towards pleasure, can get distorted. And you can end up with a suppression and avoidance, as well as addictions and attachments. So there's some learning that has to take place there. But it's really important to understand that there's the experience of pain, and then there's the resistance to that pain and the story about that pain. The suffering is all there. The resistance and suffering are the same thing. No resistance, no suffering. Right? No story or interpretation, no suffering. It's always the story you have about what's happening that creates suffering, which is a sense of resistance. It's not enough. I'm not good enough. This is terrible. How can I possibly deal with that? Before you know it, you're completely wrapped around the axle. And in a reconciliation, what I do is I bring people back directly to the pain itself to find out what the pain has to teach you. Chronic pain is a really interesting one because it's really been known. I can't remember the Dr. John. Oh, I can't remember his name now. It escapes me. He's the one that wrote the Mind Body Connection. Had, it's like 100% success rate healing chronic pain, so he did it simply by going into the emotions that we have not been willing to listen to. And there's a, God, names are escaping me now. Sachs, Nicole Sachs. Sachs, yes, Nicole Sachs, Sachs. She's got a few videos here on YouTube, and I recommend her. She's actually taken some of my some of my courses. We had some great conversations. She was a student of his, the guy who wrote the Mind Body Connection. Studied with him and now does it herself, and that's how she does it. It's very similar to inner reconciliation, which is why she got, kind of got drawn to me, and we were able to talk about it, because at the root, and I highly recommend her, right? So you can bear that if that's something you guys are dealing with, because at the root of it is just emotional stuff that we have not been able to allow to move through us, to come out and be be released. And so there are ways you can that you can do it, that will make that facilitate that, and then you'll find then that the pain in the body actually had its roots in an emotional trauma and the like, which is, becoming increasingly well understood that that's the case. But you can't even get near there when all you're trying to do is get rid of your suffering. Because if all you're trying to do is like get rid of the suffering around it, you're never going to give it a chance to be present with it. So first you have to see through the suffering, and the suffering is all the story about the pain. Once you can move away from that and towards it, you find first off that the pain isn't nearly as horrible as you thought it was. And secondarily, it opens up the door to the possibility of actually moving deep into the source of that chronic pain and releasing it. And Danielle says, John Sarno. Thank you. Dr. John Sarno. That's the guy. Yeah. Yeah. Just brilliant. Oh, yeah, Jill said it too. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Went just John something. Just and then for a minute I couldn't remember Nicole. I know her, she's a friend. I know her, and I could just, that's what happens anyway. So does that answer your question, my friend? So be really clear that suffering is the story we make up about the pain. Good night, Barbara. And not the pain itself. And the story, all it does is keep, remember, the egoic mind makes a separation. All it does is make a separation between you and that pain, makes the pain an enemy, right? Wants to keep it away, and now this wall is there, and it's suffering. If this can dissipate, and we're just with that pain, a door can open and enter into there, and on the other side of that door is the relief from it, and the total way through it. And Nicole's is an incredible story about it, how it happened to her. I mean, 10 years, right? So it's like, this is real. This is real. And chronic pain is in fact, epidemic levels. It's amazing. When I looked into it, it's like, whoa. So anyway, there's the explanation of it, and even some tips for how to take another step. Edita says, Bogdan Ristia with a little heart. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is fun. Edita says, I feel like I grasped the message. Listen to Krishnamurti, Mooji, Eckhart Tolle. Very good. However, still find it very difficult to put the lessons into life. Could it be that I'm not practicing enough? Let me see something here. When you say I'm not practicing enough, all it does is put more pressure on you and tells you that you're not enough. You've got to try harder. Well, I know for a fact you've tried hard enough. Okay, you don't need to try anymore. You don't need to, this isn't like school is perpetual, and every time you get, this is your last year. Well, no, not really. We changed the curriculum, and now you got to go 3 more years in order to finally get your degree. And that's kind of the way a lot of these things work. putting it into practice, to put it into practice and start living it. You know, that's, I don't want to make it sound like a commercial, but that's why I created the inner reconciliation courses. That's exactly what they're for, is to how to do this in your life in a very practical way. So, so I think it's gpwalsh.com/IR, and there's you know, there's the introductory video. There's a very inexpensive of it's like $7, which is like discounted thing of an introduction to it called the Yoga of Allowing, and then there's 3 levels of it, and it all is a retraining of the nervous system, because that's all it is. The problem isn't you. You already know everything that you need to know. The problem is that the nervous system is still acting according to the old regime. It's acting according to the old patterns, right? And so until when you begin to understand that and start to work with those energies, it begins to transform. And then the suffering does begin to lessen. The stuff does begin to change. But as long as there's this conflict that I got to work harder, I got to do more, this pressure that's going on, that's not what you need. You need less of that. You need more allowing, more opening, more ability to just be present with what is, more forgiveness, more self-acceptance. And that's what inner reconciliation is all about. It's the how, as to how to go about implementing it, how to go about living it, how about the how to get it out of just our vision, the stuff that we see, and we know we see it and we know it's true, and get that into the felt experience. So Judy says, and it works. I can attest to that. Yes, Judy. So so can others listening today. Yeah, it does work. Yeah, there is a way to do it. It's just not really so obvious at first, because all because of our, we've all been educated into the self-help model of we're broken and we have to be fixed. Almost none start from the point of view that there's nothing wrong with you. And that truth simply has to get, that message has to get into the nervous system, which is operating under the assumption that there is something wrong with you. And there's the disconnect. So once you recognize that, it becomes a matter of communicating the truth to the nervous system so it can begin to respond to that and drop out of its defensive posture. And that's when it begins to happen. And Daniela said, no, gee, thank you. Never heard of him before. Just quickly Googled him. Ah, great. Thank you. Thank you. Remember the title of the book so you could find him for me. Thanks, Nebras. Hey, G, you look great, like in the haircut. You haven't seen me since well, I don't know, last time we saw each other. Boy, it's been a long time. Okay, Sophie. I think, Sophie, let's see. Is there a shift happening into freedom from many years of working within family structures which are dying? For freedom from many years of work. Can you say a thing to assist me in this transition? Thank you. Love, Sophie. There is a shift happening into freedom after many years of working within family structures which are dying. Can you say a thing to assist me in this transition? Okay, yes, indeed. Family structures are just like community structures, religious, all structures, right? Right now, every single structure and institution on this planet is falling apart. None of them, all of them are based on a model of humanity that has become obsolete. They're all based on a model of humanity that grew out of a period of time where scarcity was a fact, where we were under the thumb of nature, that we had no control over anything whatsoever. So scarcity, threats of death, competition for limited resources was a fact. Now, that's actually only been about the last 12,000 years, right? We actually had, in the hunter-gatherer period, a much more stable and communal society. It was much more equality of the genders. Everything was same. The whole structure we have right now came at a very weird development of human consciousness, and an important one. The development of structures and cultures and language, and also there was an explosion that took place. But what we lost in that is, well, what I should say is that what happened in that is that which utterly liberated us from that complete dependence upon nature, there's still active within us this sense that the scarcity is real, and I want to hoard, and I'm going to, and I don't want to share, and I want to keep mine for myself, even though there's an infinite abundance for everybody. This is kind of the schizophrenia we're in. Our current institutions all came out of that. The idea of property ownership emerged back then, right? I mean, if I go from just kind of wandering around and picking stuff and it's all okay in most of the time, to, you know, I've got my grains and I got my field, suddenly real estate, this is mine, right? It didn't exist before, right? And also within that, for whatever reason, the whole hierarchical alpha male thing kind of dominated it. And so that whole patriarchal thing kind of wiped out the whole goddess cultures, the feminine aspect, amplified the male aspect. And basically that's what we're suffering in right now. I'm going through all of that because we are feeling on a worldwide level, universal level. We're also feeling it in the pressure in our own intimate relationships, our family relationship, close family, extended family, and communities. I mean, it's being felt because every single organizational principle that we lived under, that was culture, that governed our even our relationships, is crumbling because it does not fit the emerging reality, the emerging consciousness. We are aware that we actually live in, there is no need anymore for anyone to go without ever. We have infinite resources at our disposal if we're intelligent enough to understand how it really works. And the ego and the greed that goes with it doesn't see it, doesn't want to see it, is fighting it tooth and nail, because the answer is love. The answer is a reconnection. Finding ourselves in connection with one another and in connection with the earth and the interrelationship of everything. It's exactly the opposite of the egoic separation. The egoic separation feels good. I'm winning now. You know, I've got more than you. I've cut my taxes. I don't have to give you anything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's all the crumbling of the egoic mind. That's all it is. And we're all feeling it on every single level. So what I can say to assist you in the transition is to simply allow it to happen. Notice that there's going to be a desire to want to hold on to it because it's known and stable. And at the same time, there's a huge relief to see it going. Yet we don't know where we're going yet. And actually, that idea just gave me an idea for the retreat, for the opening night of the retreat. We don't know where we're going yet. And we can't. We can't possibly know. We can no more understand what we are evolving into than the Neanderthals could understand us. That's how different it is. The current state of humanity is going to look so primitive to us in 100 years. And it's a major shift, and it is going to happen fast. And it is going to happen. It's going to look like it's not going to happen. It's going to look like we're at the abyss and it's over, right? We blew it. We're about to completely wipe ourselves off the planet. It's going to get difficult, but it's going to happen. The awakening is going to hit critical mass, tipping point, and it's going to explode. I'm so confident I am just so confident of that. I just can't tell you when or how it's all going to happen or what it's going to look like really on the other side. You know, the caterpillar has no concept of a butterfly. You know, when we start down this spiritual path, we think we have some idea, oh, I'm going to feel this and it's going to be great. I'm going to feel this bliss and this joy and this openness, the oneness. And then it doesn't go like that. And things start getting purged from us. And wait a minute, this is not all that comfortable. What's going on? And but you know, the stuff is being pulled out of you, and you're being ushered into and prepared for something you couldn't possibly imagine, which means you couldn't possibly have created a process in order to create it. Inner reconciliation isn't a process to get you there. It's a process to prepare you, to allow you to go through it. It doesn't make it happen. It makes you able to let it happen. It's a very different approach. So I hope that answered your question, Sophie. And I wanted to take it up to the more universal level as well, because that's what you're feeling. You know, you're working within these family structures and they don't work for you. Well, that's because your consciousness has outgrown them. And oops, did I lose my sound? Is my sound still okay, everyone? Did it get different or something? It says it's okay. I get one thing that says it's not okay, and one thing that says I just wanted to check it. I don't want to be that, you know, all that long-winded on it, but it's really, really important, obviously, because we're all feeling it, and we're feeling it very personally. I felt it. You know, I've had total upheavals in my life. It's like, oh, I don't deserve this. I've been good. I've been doing my spiritual things, right? It's like, whoa, what the hell? And then, oh yeah, well, that's why, because I really can't see what's coming, and eventually just kind of. So, it just says, thank you. Oh, you're very, very welcome. Let's see, Ivan, hello from Bulgaria. Wow. This is so good. Spending about 90% of my free time listening to you, Muji, Eckhart Tolle, etc. And it is great. But sometimes I feel I need to stop for a while. I'm overheating, but I can't stop. All else seems like wasting time. I know that feeling. I know that feeling. I mean, sometimes now there's stuff I have to do. And I go, oh, wow, why do I have to do that? I mean, I want to complain because it's just stuff you have to do. I know the feeling, because once you get an appetite for this, nothing else matters. But what I would encourage you to do is like, you know, like Muji's invitation. I'm sure you're familiar with that. The mind is always trying to run to what's next. And as he puts it, we need to marinate in this. I like to say we need to let it colonize, kind of proliferate throughout the system, and kind of remove what doesn't need to be there anymore and establish what does. And so sometimes I needed to take a break. You're not going to be able to take a break from it, not anymore. I mean, it's just part of you. You may need to take a break from just like doing videos, watching videos and things like that, and take it to just simple things. You know, something you like to do, but bring this energy of isness, this energy of presence to it, to see how it transforms. Notice how you react to it. Notice how your egoic mind responds and wants to build walls. Just let life be your meditation. Let life be the koan. Let life, your life, be the place in which this gets realized. As Muji says, your life, you are life. So the life you're leading right now is the way in. So we don't need to completely divorce ourselves from it. Renunciation, real renunciation from the world, does not mean withdrawing and going to a cave somewhere, because you're still with you. What it really means is withdrawing our identification with the world. And that means watching very carefully and thoughtfully how you are interacting with things, and who you are that's reacting. Who is it that's showing up there? If there's some kind of reaction to something, that's very good to notice. Ah, there it is. There's the egoic mind. There's the person that is stemming. And if I identify with that person, I will create a conflict here. So I see it now. And I can just kind of breathe, withdraw, not let it take over. I may not know what to do differently in that moment, but that's okay. Space is there, right? So all else that is not dedicated to truly imbibing and living the truth you're seeing is a waste of time. It's just the same thing over and over again. You're either acting out the egoic mind, or you are being who you actually are. So now it becomes your everything in your life. When you're brushing your teeth, who's brushing your teeth? This is reality brushing teeth. This is the self brushing the teeth, not a person. There is no person. They're not there. That is an illusion. So it would seem like, oh, wait, I just have to brush my teeth now, or I have to do this thing. Wait a minute, stop. Who's doing this? Who's doing this thing right now? Is there really such thing as this person? The answer is no. So it isn't something you have to get away from. It's something you can put you completely in and see how it becomes transformed by that. I hope you get it. So tell me if that works for you, Ivan. That would be, it's so important, because I've seen a lot of people, it's easy to get stuck here. Because it is, I mean, this is just totally absorbing. It's so liberating. You want to lap it up. And all of, remember, Nisargadatta was a working guy, right? He had cigarette kiosks. He had little cigarette shops, little holes in the wall around Bombay, right? The slums of Bombay, when he met his teacher. And what he said was, I devoted every extra moment I had to pondering, to looking at myself. How did he put it? Looking at myself. Well, the general meaning was, he was simply looking at himself directly, without any thoughts or any, just looking at, watching himself. That's what he did. He said in 3.5 years, he had completely awoken. Now, working guy, right? He's just working in his shop, making cigarettes, for crying out loud, right? Nothing glamorous, nothing over the top. Gave time to his family. Whatever time he had left over, he totally dedicated it. That's all he had to do. Now, I'm sure he was doing, as he was making those cigarettes, this inquiry was going on, right? It was just this constant thing that happened, and boom, it popped, and he became one of the greatest sages of certainly the 20th century, really, of all time. And the book I Am That has introduced probably more people to Advaita Vedanta than any other book in history. I mean, it's just like, went like wildfire. And all that was somebody who recorded conversations sitting with him in this tiny little room upstairs in his son's house. And that's where he lived, in this little room upstairs in his son's house. And somebody recorded those conversations. They got published, went all over the world, and people came from all over the world. And he never went anybody, he didn't have a big ashram or anything. There's a little room. I mean, it hold maybe 15 people. So do not underestimate that. Don't think all this other stuff is getting in the way. It's a matter of the quality of attention that you give when you are considering the inquiry. Is that good for you, buddy? Great. Adita says, thank you. Thank you. Chrissy says, here, Judy. Echo that. Entire inner reconciliation is transformation, freedom, flow, aliveness, awakening, love. There's 2 satisfied customers. Good. Adita says, I have to go now. I'll check out your courses. Thanks again. Judy says, always, Chrissy, you said it so beautifully. Del Henderson said, "You're okay." Okay. Thanks, Del. Del is great. I call Del the mountain. He's a big, handsome guy. G says, "Thank you very much. Love. Great. Mindset sounds. Wait. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Where'd you go? Sound is. Oh, fine. Thank you. Let's see. Maja says, are all desires an illusion? Or to put it differently, are there any desires that are not of the ego?" I have a different approach to that. Oh, Ivan says, "That's exactly what I needed to hear. Thanks a lot, G. Sending lots of love." Great, 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 great. Cool. Maja, are all desires an illusion? Or to put it differently, are there any desires that are not of the ego? An interesting thing about what Buddha taught about desire, because it's been kind of handed down, become the it's the everybody hears that, you know, desire is the cause of suffering. But what he was really referring to was the desire for something that doesn't exist is suffering. But obviously, you know, if I fall in love with Mickey Mouse and I want to have a relationship with him, I'm going to be disappointed because he doesn't exist, right? If I fall in love with a robot, right, I'm going to be really, really disappointed because the object of my desire doesn't exist. The ego is not a thing. So it doesn't have desires, right? What it is a storyline, a collection of thoughts that are projected upon reality. And therefore it is, while we're identified with that storyline, we see the reality through those eyes, through that lens, and we think that's what reality is. And that lens is, in its essence, a view of myself as separate and reality out here. And then through that, everything out here is interpreted. So a desire arises, and when a desire arises, the desire is not coming from the ego, because the ego is not a thing. It is a reactive pattern. The ego didn't create your desire for love. It didn't create your desire for food. It didn't create your desire to breathe. It didn't create our desire to have sex. It did not create our desire for warmth and comfort, right? Those are simply nature. And the desire, the natural desire of the human being to grow, to expand, to engage, to create, to dance, to run around, none of those are egoic. However, when the desire arises, it's part of the reality that is now seen through the eyes of the ego. The ego claims ownership of it, and now every desire, which is pure, perfectly innocent and natural, becomes the ego desiring to sustain itself, claiming ownership, commandeering the car. So it's an interpretation of desire. The moment that happens, suffering is created, because the fundamental premise that is the ego is, I am separate. This desire, I'm separate from what I desire, and I go running after it. Boom, that separation is, I don't have it, I want it, I'm suffering, right? But none of that's in the desire. The desire is just arising, and it'll find expression or it won't. It'll find what it needs or it won't. If it's really, really important, it'll find it, right? Because it's just, that's its nature. There's no argument with that. It's all of how it gets looked at, so that how it's perceived. And if we perceive it through the eyes of the ego, the desire becomes something really that causes an enormous amount of suffering. Without that, there's no suffering in it. Is that clear? It's very subtle to see, but this is so key to understanding the nature of the ego, because when the ego claims desire, the ego is obviously a problem that we have to deal with. It's not real. And so it would seem then that, oh, it owns desire, so desires aren't real, or creativity isn't real, and all these things that I want to do aren't real, right? And so we throw out the baby with the bathwater. All of that is real. All of those, all of that's absolutely essential and a part of life. It's what's projected on it that isn't real, right? In the desert, the sand is there, the sun is there, the heat is there, the heat rising on the sand is there, the distortion of the heat makes in the air that we can see from a distance is there. The mirage, the oasis we project on it is not there. Everything else is, right? So it's the projection on what is real that is the problem. It's not this, right? The story of the snake and the rope, mistaking the snake for rope, the rope for a snake, and then running away afraid of the snake. All that fear and everything was real, but the snake isn't. There is a rope there though, right? We just have to see it as a rope, and suddenly fear's gone, problem's gone, ego's gone. Is that clear, Maja? It's really, thank you for that question. It's really, really, really important. Chosen one, GP, how to stop porn addiction? I just feel that it's not right. Semen retention journey is so hard the first 2 weeks. Yes. Yeah. Well, any addiction is an attempt to make up for something inside of you that feels untaken care of, that isn't getting what it needs. I would spend some time as that desire arises in the body to turn your attention inwards and really honestly pose the question, what am I really looking for here? What am I looking for that this temporary relief that does feel good and is harmless, it's not going to hurt anybody, right? What is it that it's really craving? And I find for a lot of people that the porn has easy access, but having an actual human contact with another human being, there can be a lot of resistance to that. So that would be something worth exploring. I'd say the same thing about people who play a lot of video games. But you know what? Maybe you should actually get out and touch a human being and see what it's like to be in this world. Because that too is an addiction. Shopping isn't. Everything can become an addiction. An addiction is simply substituting something that gives you a quick hit, because there's some kind of pain that requires more than a quick hit. That's why the quick hit has to take place over and over again, because it just has to keep masking, because it satisfies nothing. There's something deeper in there. And the semen retention journey, what is the actual benefit that you're seeking from it? I guess it's the increase in energy, because there's a school of thought that, and it actually is true, when the male ejaculates, there is an enormous expenditure of energy. That's why most of the time after sex, men just kind of fall asleep. That actually is what happens. In tantric teaching and the like about sex, there are some alternatives for that to sustain it and the like, and semen retention is one of those. But the real thing about that is that what it's bringing up is how this desire to get to the hit, right? So if you can really be present with that, what is it about this that it's hard? Right? What is it that you feel like you're missing? Because when you start any kind of thing like this, which is new, which is going to be a change of behavior, in the beginning, it's going to be difficult because the habit just keeps wanting to go back. So allow yourself the opportunity to, rather than just fight it, to really kind of probe that territory of the attachment to find out what's the deep emotional stuff underneath. Use it as an opportunity for self-investigation. And you'll always find that there's some kind of ego investment in it, or trying to suppress or keep something hidden. And that should give you it should be an opportunity for you to find really some gems of wisdom in that, which will then make the whole rest of the process easier, because there'll be less resistance to it, less of a desire to return to the old, and more of a desire to explore whatever this has to offer to you. So I hope that answers it for you, chosen one. Chrissy says, thank you, G. That just answered the question that had not quite appeared, but forming. Oh, the one for, oh, no, that was after, that was before that one. Oh, about desires being an illusion, I think. Yeah, okay, cool. Pamulas, what do you think of Douglas Harding? I love him. Yeah, I've done some of the exercises of the Headless Way, and I've actually adopted some of them because they're just so fun and obvious. Because for those of you who are not familiar with Douglas Harding, he's an English gentleman with a beautiful English voice. Yeah, very classic English voice. But he had an awakening when he just realized that he couldn't actually even see his own head, and so that everything he knew about himself was an image in his mind that somebody had put there, and none of these had actually seen for himself. So he designed this series of exercises to get you aware of the fact that the self-image you hold, you've never actually seen. You've never directly seen your own self. From your point of view, you don't have a head. And it's a beautiful, right? And this is true. You actually have to look at yourself from somebody else's point of view to say, well, there it is, I got the head, right? But if you yourself, have you ever seen it? You've seen images, you've seen pictures, but you've never seen it. Seeing's believing, right? I mean, it sounds kind of out there, but it's really fun to be led through those kinds of processes. You can look it up. Richard, his student, Douglas Harding, passed on a while ago, but his student, I can't remember his last name, Richard something. He's continuing on with it. So yeah, it's another avenue to explore, and there are some recordings out there that you can find of him, because I think he died in the 90s. Of him talking, and he's a great speaker. He's very, very engaging and entertaining, and you really do get it. That, the essence of it, something I really, really, really love, is that we've all been taught to defer to what other people say about us, and to denounce and distrust our own internal experience. I mean, unfortunately, modern science does that with spades. It completely rejects any subjectivity, right? So me saying, it's just my intuition, I know this is true, is categorically rejected by science. So it cannot engage in anything subjectively. It is always looking for this ultimate objective point of view. Now, if that isn't the ego, I don't know what is. It is looking for the solidity of the separation. Now, early in the 20th century, it became really clear to advanced physicists and the like that pure objectivity isn't possible. We can't do it. You cannot view anything without affecting what you're viewing. The mere act of observing affects what is observed. But this got kind of pushed aside, and it's completely ignored. Science has continued to march along on that. And, it's hard for me to sit here and be so critical of science, but I am, because it's missed a fundamental. It was very important back in the Renaissance when it broke from superstition, and we have reason now at our disposal, and not just belief and holy scriptures that we're supposed to believe. We can actually question, call things into authority, but it has kind of overstepped the bounds by denying anything that cannot be objectively studied. Simply doesn't exist and has to be dismissed, which is why it dismisses all spirituality and mysticism. And mysticism is simply the opposite. The opposite of science is mysticism, which is, I know by direct experience. And I know because I know, and I know I know. But you cannot present that in scientific terms. What's beautiful about Douglas Harding is he takes you there. He takes you to this place where, what is your actual experience? And why do we doubt our own experience? We don't doubt the experience of our own being. And yet, that's something that even, well, the nature of that is totally open to discussion. There's just this basic assumption that what you are is nothing but a very complex functioning of objects, of matter, and that it's going to dissolve and you're gone, period, poof, nothing, oblivion, right? Now, to me, I'm looking at it from the point of view of all of that's happening. The only thing I know is consciousness. That's all I know. I don't know about any of that other stuff. Everything they tell me, does this matter? I don't know. Is it objective for me? I have no experience of anything objective, nothing, which is the discovery that you know, was there for a little bit early in the 20th century, but has now been completely dismissed. The materialistic view is dominant, and I stand completely on the opposite side of it, and honor intuition as having more authority than a double-blind test or some kind of objective study, because I know that objectivity isn't really possible, and every attempt to become objective is a fool's errand. So that's how I put it. So anyway, that's my take on and elaboration on Douglas Harding. So I do recommend, if you find yourself interested in that. Liz says, "Hi GP." Hi Liz. Good to have you here. Wonderful to have you. Maha says, "Thank you. I will have to re-listen the answer to be sure I fully got it." Good. Yeah, it's important what you asked. Very important what you asked, and I thank you for doing it. Chosen One says, "Some ancient teachings say that semen is precious life force, and somehow all those teachings have convinced me that it's not okay to ejaculate even during sex." So I feel like I've lost mu essence. Do you mean to say my essence, or you mean to say mu as in the Zen koan? I think you meant my essence. So I feel like I've lost my essence. Yeah. If anybody says something that this is absolutely true, run, don't walk away. It's that it's not okay to ejaculate. That's a belief system that has been opposed, and there's supposed to be some reward for doing that. And if you hold to that, then you're going to get that reward. It's not true, right? Now, that's not to say to become much more conscious and much more present and much more open and loving and accepting and being present and natural within something as natural and as wonderful as sex is invaluable. I'm a big supporter, and I encourage people in Tantra. There's way more to Tantra than just the sexual part, but the sexual part is very important, especially if you want to have a real intimate relationship that can get to real, where sex can serve a bigger purpose, which is the bliss of union. So to call it, well, it's this precious life force that needs to be conserved, as if life doesn't have an infinite amount of energy. What's the big deal? What in the world is going to be lost? And then they can plant the idea in your head that if you do, you're losing your essence. And now, of course, that belief makes you feel as though you've lost your essence. So doing what comes completely natural now becomes a problem, which is, no different than, the Puritans that, you shouldn't even have a thought about it, right? And certainly if your body becomes aroused, you should, beat it with a hammer or something. I mean, really insane stuff. Whip yourself because I had a bad thought. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's a little it's different in style, and it's got a different reason. But life is here to be explored. It's not a bunch of rules you have to follow to get some reward. There is no reward. The reward is life itself. The life is living what's actually here. And that means discover what's here. And I totally love the idea of exploring all these things, especially sexuality, like, because it's such a taboo. But to actually explore them, right? Not just take, you shouldn't do it, or just, fuck with impunity, right? Just the extremes, the hedonist or the Puritan, but to give yourself the freedom to like find life in it, find what works, find how find those approaches that detract from your higher self and those that enhance it, those that detract from intimacy and those that enhance it, those that become places for us to emotionally hide, and those that become places for us to be emotionally open and raw. That's always the side that I move towards. And sometimes you find a place, no, it actually felt like I was kind of shutting me down. Okay, I'm going to do something different with that. So that answers you, man. And I really want to honor you for the exploration. It's extremely important. I'm just going to keep you from getting, caught in some cul-de-sac somewhere that isn't necessary. This, all of these things were created for you, to show you alternatives that you could then explore and take what you want and throw the rest away. You were not made for them. The laws were made for you. You were not made for the laws. You are free. You do it any way you like. So, G. Goodemond says, how can I kill my false self? Thank you. I've heard that phrase before, and Muji sometimes said, chop off its head, and people have then chop, and even Muji said, look, I want, you can't kill something that never existed, right? So the false self is a set of patterns. It is a way of thinking. It is a particular form in which thought has kind of coalesced and is kind of stuck in that groove. That's what it is. That is the false self. Now, that groove all by itself, when you see it just as a thought and you do not identify it, the self is gone. You see, there's no self in it. It's just a flow of thoughts. You, consciousness, which are a self, identifying with that flow of thoughts, now gives imaginary life to the false self. Ah, that's me. And so now consciousness, which is infinite and unlimited, identifies with this, which is quite limited and small, feels that constriction, and then says, how do I get rid of this? How do I get rid of this? All you do is you go, oh, it's just patterns of thought and feeling. It is not who I am, and begin to withdraw that energy back. And you can tell it's not who you are because you're looking at it. You are seeing the thoughts. There's the thought. Something is seeing it. The thought isn't looking at you. You're looking at the thought. You're the conscious one. There, you hear? Here's the thought. Ah, okay. It's not me. It's just a pattern. That's how the false self is seen to have never lived in the first place. So you don't need to kill it. It was never alive. You can't kill Bugs Bunny. I mean, I don't want anybody to want to, but you can't kill Bugs Bunny because he's not alive. You can't, I remember there was a big uproar when in one of the Superman magazines, they had Superman die, right? And big uproar. Superman never existed. Okay. It's okay. They can kill him because guess what? They brought him back. Ta-da! Right? Resurrection. Right? So there's nothing there. There isn't actually a person you have to get rid of. It is, I call it the robot. It's just this mechanical thing that operates in a predictable pattern, and we've projected on that pattern the sense of self. Take the sense of self, bring it back to yourself, because you are the self, and then just watch what happens. If you are not sustaining that energy, that pattern of thought by your identification with it. How's that, G? Haron says, at least I can see my nose. Yeah, there's this little, if you look, he's referring back to the headless way. Yeah, if you can see, there's kind of this, there's this little lump I see. But I say this is my nose. Why don't I say that this is my world? This is my universe. They're all appearing in the same place, in this place of emptiness. My hands disappear into this emptiness, and they come out and appear magically here. I mean, it's like maybe all I am is this beautiful screen that contains everything. In fact, that's where the headless way eventually leads to, that I'm just this emptiness, and that everything out here is me. I mean, why is the car it just beeped out my window not as much me as this nose? Well, there's no reason. They're all appearing in the same field. If I'm identified with this form, then, well, there's me and then there's that. But if I'm not, and I see that there's just this emptiness, I am just this consciousness, kind of like a pair of eyeballs floating through space with nothing behind it, you know, absolutely razor thin, then everything is me. There's no separation anymore. The egoic separation is just simply gone. So when I look at you, I'm looking at me. Chrissy. The difference between inner and outer has been less defined lately. When you spoke always about coming back to the I that has experienced this. Can't say more. Yes, inner and outer are really arbitrary definitions. You know, we refer to the inner, but it's really where the attention goes. Is it going towards myself, or is it going away from myself? So we would call that inner and outer. And that really is a concession to the mind, which sees things as, you know, I end here at the skin, at the body, and then everything else is out there. That's the egoic illusion. I don't end here at the skin, and my perceiving of this body and my perceiving of the world around me are being perceived in exactly the same place. So why is one out and one in? Why is me and one is not me? There, in fact, is absolutely no reason why. That, again, is the illusion of the separate self, which has defined itself by this boundary. Oh, I am this body. So that means that's all not me. The I am this body isn't true. You aren't this body. You are simply pure conscious awareness. The I that is experiencing all of this. And it's very simple. Consciousness is what's hearing my voice, right? Obviously, that's consciousness. And obviously, you're hearing it. So obviously, you are consciousness. That is what you are. And everything appears to that consciousness. So why is anything that's appearing in the consciousness, which is itself not conscious, why do we keep saying that that's me? That's not me. I am consciousness. How could I be anything else? I'm the one hearing, which is consciousness. Oh, I get it. Pamela says, love that description of the false self. Ah, great. Thank you. Chrissy says, and you're speaking about Nisargadatta. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what a character. Just my all-time favorites. And, you know, the books by him, which are actually just writings of conversations, are one of the few. They're just amongst the few books that I actually regularly read. I mean, I do some other reading and the like. But, you know, there's a couple that I come back to, and he's one of them. Ramana Maharshi's another, and the like. So Meryl says, Here, here, think I finally got it. Who is drinking this coffee? Watching GP. There you go, Meryl. Yes. It's so simple. It's so, who brushes their teeth? Who sits there? Oh, it is so simple. Oh my God. I've got all these ideas about it, but it's just me. Chosen one. Thank you, G. I forgive Trump. You're all invited here. Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Just kind of open up your heart, because he's just a much more visible example of what is going on with all of us. Yeah, I mean, it really is true. And Chrissy adds, yes, no separation. Good. Let's see. Okay, we're slowing down on the questions. I hope everybody is satisfied. So if there aren't any more, I'm going to start bringing this to a close. As always, I'm just delighted at the quality of the questions that are coming. That I'm really happy you all kind of really got into the spirit of satsang, which is about self-exploration. I mean, we could go in the direction of self-help and processing of the nervous system and all sorts of things, which I do, and inner reconciliation straddles that and goes in both directions. But whenever the opportunity arises, I really want to bring people back to the truth of who they are, because that's where all the questions just simply vaporize, and you just know the answer because you are the answer. Nebras. My lovely Nebras. Lots of great, deep questions. I'd like to ask about beauty, attractiveness, and working with issues around it. It brings the conversation out of the depths of a bit, but it's been an important area. No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all, because obviously to every human being, part of what drives us is to be attractive to another human being, right? I mean, it is one of our most primal desires, and it's I mean, that's love. We seek union with someone else. Now, just because of all the cultural stuff that gets added on top of us, we're assessing our capacity to be able to do that. Am I good enough to be able to do that? Am I attractive? Am I going to be this way? And so all of that becomes a lot of self-talk, a lot of stuff that is, and unfortunately, it's even more difficult for women than for men. And as I like to say, if I'm really successful with the transformation I like to make in women, that the beauty, the whole cosmetics and fashion industry will go away. Because women will not be susceptible to that nonsense anymore, because they will discover the inherent beauty of the feminine and just love embodying it. So that's really what it is. It becomes a matter of I like putting it like this, of really approaching the utter mystery of the feminine, this energy of receptivity and openness and sensitivity and connection. I mean, the interconnection of us, of beings, which is love, which is where the world needs to go if we're going to not destroy ourselves, is femininity. It is the female aspect. It is the goddess. It represents the open and the connectivity. It's the earth. It's the nurturing of life. When you as an individual begin to identify with this energy that is being made manifest in this particular form that you have to work with, you won't worry about its beauty. And you'll stop interpreting it through the eyes of the culture, which is nothing but the eyes of the ego that says, well, this is beautiful, this isn't. Well, it's crazy. And of course, they're interested in narrowing the idea of beauty so small that the vast majority of people, and mostly women, don't feel attractive. And then, hey, I got this to sell you. It'll make you feel much more attractive. It's bullshit from beginning to end. It is nonsense from beginning to end. So this idea of, discover your inner beauty and stuff, I mean, it sounds so weak and cliche. So I don't want to put it that way. I want you to discover the true power in the feminine, that in this lifetime, it is your great privilege to give life to. And recognize that when you look in the mirror, if you don't see something beautiful, you are seeing through deluded eyes. You are not seeing. Right? You are seeing through the eyes of the culture that's presenting you with a model, literally a supermodel, who doesn't look like you, right? And saying, this is what you should look like. You don't look like that. And here's why. Oh, look, you don't have this, 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 and this, right? And so then they're showing you this overly photoshopped version of something that barely looks like a human being, and how you're supposed to aspire to it. And the pressure's on all over the place to do that. And that's the world that you're in. That needs to be put aside, because it is just destructive nonsense. Bullshit. That's the technical term. It's bullshit. So we're reclaiming the genuine feminine, and the world needs it, right? I mean, the world is overly masculine. It's just aggressively masculine. It has no counterbalance whatsoever. It doesn't want connection. It wants war. Look, we got wars going on. We've had wars going on continually since World War II. I mean, really, there has not been a day without war going on somewhere since for 60, 70 years. This is madness. But this is the male energy that has been disconnected from life, and women represent life. And so for this energy to once again take form and to come into its power is absolutely the most necessary thing for the world to have. And the wonder of it is that it literally expands the beauty of each individual woman. You're no longer judging yourself by these artificial standards. A completely different way of interacting comes up, and you see the uniqueness of every individual and the goddess in every individual woman. And then you won't worry about it. And you'll also attract the kind of man that can see it, that isn't blinded by the nonsense as well, but actually can feel the presence of genuine femininity. And that's the sweetest thing in the world. I could tell you from the other side, it's the most wonderful thing in the world. Anne says, beautiful satsang. Thanks. Thank you, Anne. Mark C, you came late. Always satisfying. Gratitude and love. Thank you, Mark. I am, with a quote, big smile. Yeah. Helen says, silly of me, only just arrived. I need to come back and listen to what you've said about consciousness. I've never quite got it. Well, yeah, that's because you are it. As long as you keep looking for it in the mind, you won't get it. You're the one seeing. So just keep bringing it back there. But yeah, really listen to it. I think I put it really well that time. Reggie says, gratitude from Brazil. Loved the moment. Very good. Thank you. Terry says, nice spending time with you all. Have a great week. Judy, honored and grateful that you have satsang. Thanks, G. Thank you, Judy. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for spending this wonderful day with me. I'm going to try to keep doing the satsangs. I flew into Seattle yesterday so I could be here live. I didn't want to do I didn't even have time to do a pre-recorded one. I didn't want to just leave it flat. So while I'm here, I won't be doing one next week because it will be the end of the retreat. The retreat will be going on right in the middle of it, so I won't be available. So there's that for sure. So next Sunday there will not be a satsang. And I'm pretty sure I will not have time to do some kind of a pre-recorded thing. If I do, it'll be up there. So, so thank you all once again. Ista says, may your feet walk softly upon the earth. Thank you. Daniela says, thank you so much, GP and everyone. Thank you all. Thank you all. I love you and namaste.